Okay. Call the meeting to order. This is the Platting Board, Wednesday, July 1st, 2009. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Anastasia Taylor.
Here.
Art Clark.
Here.
Benjamin Roll.
Here.
Carol Stolpe.
Here.
Ellen McKay.
Here.
Jody Moses. Here. Kathleen Plunkett.
Here.
Lendell Story. Michael Krieger.
Here.
Next is the approval of action summaries. There are action summaries for Monday, May 25th, 2009, Wednesday, June 3rd, 2009, Monday, June 22nd, 2009, and Monday, June 15th, 2009. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Krieger, seconded by Mr. Roll. Are there any objections?
Just a note, Madam Chair, the summary of action for June 3rd deals with the report that Chairman Clark, or Acting Chair Clark, and Ms. Moses and I met with the transition team. Actually, I think it's more accurate in the minutes than it is here, because basically what we said is, here's what we think. If any of our board members think differently, they're certainly at liberty to contact the transition team and let them know. But this kind of appears like we were deeming to know what all the concerns of the various board members were, and that ain't quite the way it happened. It's more accurate in the minutes. But having made that comment, I'm going to support my motion.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Ms. O'Brien?
Madam Chair, is that then to amend that summary of action to reflect the minutes?
Yeah, that would be...
So it's as amended then?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I think the minutes are more consistent with what happened than the summary of action. And I see Board Member Moses nodding her head. I appreciate it.
Add the second, Mr. Roll. Is that fine with you? Okay. All right, then. Then the action summaries are approved. And the next is approval of minutes. We have minutes for June 3rd, 2009. I missed something here. Okay. Positive motion by Mr. Krieger, seconded by Ms. Plunkett. Are there any objections to approval of the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. And we move to the special order of business. Are there any disclosures? Seeing none, we're now at the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of all matters before the board that do not require a public hearing, all items to be approved by motion without debate. Does any board member wish to remove any item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a positive motion for the consent agenda? Not sure where we are here.
Move to approve.
Mr. Krieger, did you move?
It looks like I did. I don't remember.
I think that's left from last.
Yeah. It's all locked out.
Okay.
That's all right.
Mr. Clark, with second by Ms. Taylor. Does anyone object? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. There's no old business, so we'll move to new business. And during the new business portion of the meeting, we will follow the procedure as outlined on the front of the agenda. The staff will make a presentation, and then the chair will ask for public testimony. And persons who wish to testify have time limits that are established by the rules of procedure, and we keep time by this little timer up here at the front. Petitioners have 10 minutes. Rebuttal by the petitioner may be allowed when time has been reserved, so they need to reserve time out of that 10 minutes. Representative of groups like community councils or PTAs have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board, but you may only testify once on any issue. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action of the Platting Board, and the appeal procedure is outlined on the front of the agenda. So the first case is case S11749-1, Parkway Estates subdivision. May I have the municipality's presentation, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a request to vacate a 100-foot right-of-way easement extending east from the center line of the old Seward Highway. This road easement impacts Lot 1A, Block 3, Parkway Estates subdivision. That road easement was put on the property with a recording of a plat in 1982. It was based on information that was contained at that time in the title report. There is a restaurant located on the petition site. There is also a sign located in the 50-foot road easement, as well as customer parking. At one point, the state of Alaska moved to have the sign and the customer parking relocated outside of that 100-foot easement, 50 feet of which impacts the petition site. However, it appears that that easement was placed on the property in error, that the title report may have been in error based on a chronology of events, and the application for the homestead was filed in 1948. There was a plat that was recorded in 1963 that did not show the 100-foot road easement extending from the center line of the old Seward Highway. And in 1983, the Alaska Supreme Court ruled that the 100-foot public land order, which was issued in 1949 in the Federal Register, did not apply to property that the homestead had been initiated and proved up, which it was, and the patent was issued to the then owner in 1950. So based on this, it does appear that that public land order did not apply to this property. In reviewing the request to vacate this PLO or this road reservation, this will not have, the vacation, if approved, will not have any impact on the existing 50-foot right-of-way dedicated for the old Seward, and that was dedicated with the 1963 plat. That 50-foot right-of-way will remain unaffected. What will be affected is the actual property that will be relieved of the burden of a 50-foot road easement on the property within which they have an established sign and customer parking. And that will be allowed to remain as it has been for years. The reviewing agencies basically had no objection or no comment on the vacation, including the Municipality Traffic Department as well as the Alaska Department of Transportation. Therefore, the department does recommend vacation of the road reserve as there is sufficient right-of-way that has been provided to meet the official streets and highway standard, and recommends approval of the vacation of the 100-foot road easement subject to recording a resolution with the district recorder's office. There is no plat that will accompany this request. It will, if approved, the action will appear on the title report through a resolution if approved. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Are there any questions of staff?
Thank you. Ms. O'Brien, I don't know if it's appropriate now to ask the question or later, but
in the letter that we received that was on our desk when we arrived pertaining to snow storage. Is that an appropriate issue to be dealing with with this action we're asked to take this evening?
Through the chair, Ms. Dopey, I just saw that for the first time tonight. It came late. I believe that if there is a drainage issue, one source of recourse for the writer of that letter would be to contact either the right-of-way division or project management and engineering to try to resolve the drainage issue. I believe there is a undeveloped, there is a right-of-way on the north boundary of the petition site. I don't know if it's a matter of existing drainage facilities are not working properly, because this is Lot 1A, and East 72nd Street adjoins the north property boundary. So I don't think that snow storage on a person's property is not in violation of any requirement in Title 21, and that's basically what was used in reviewing this request.
All right, and if I may just continue, Madam Chair, I noticed in the letter that we received that she's already working with the muni, the state, and the property owner. So I just don't know whether this is an appropriate venue for resolving the issue between she and the property owner.
Through the chair, Ms. Dopey, I understand the writer's concern, but it really isn't germane to the request to vacate a road easement.
Any other questions of staff? If not, we'll open the public hearing, and is the petitioner's representative come forward and state your name?
My name is Kyle Brown, and I'm here on behalf of the owner of the restaurant, Maria Elena Ball. And I guess I couldn't comment on that. That was this woman who's filed the complaint, the drainage complaint, that's been in process for 2 years. I've been working on it for 2 years, but really the underlying issue doesn't have anything to do with this right-of-way issue. That whole area is a swamp, and the woman that undoubtedly wrote that letter doesn't recognize that she's in that swamp, and she wants somebody else to hold responsible for it. The evidence, really, the best evidence is the road to the east of this property of this restaurant is called Spring Place, and it was aptly named Spring Place because there's water in the ground there every place, and the municipality has been completely unable or unwilling to put in the expense to maintain that street. It is unusable. It's a sinkhole, and the neighbors have had to, anybody in past years that had to drive through that alley that goes back behind this woman's property also has had to take a loader over there at their own expense and yank people out of the sinkhole, and the municipality has given up trying to maintain this. So the fact that there's water in the ground is not, it's just something that this woman is going to have to deal with, and she wants somebody else to pay for it. Anyhow, but it doesn't have anything to do with the right-of-way issue. So anyway, I'm here representing her. 2 years ago, this woman filed the complaint with everybody under the sun. This right-of-way was detected, with the DOT detected this easement that was basically for them, this 100-foot offset, and it's only the 50-foot section. It's from the center line of Old Seward Highway to 50 feet is the DOT's right-of-way for Old Seward Highway. It's that additional 50-foot that's being vacated that was on her property. Since that time, DOT announced that they wanted their land and that she needed to move her sign and get her parking lot off of their property, which basically would put her out of business. So she went through incredible anxiety, wondering why the government was taking her land away. When she bought it, that was her land, and without it, she can't do business. She couldn't come close to meeting the municipality's requirements for for parking spaces. So she had no idea what was happening to her or why, and I have been trying to help her during that period of time, and have done extensive legal research on this PLA issue. And so this isn't a conventional vacation request. It is actually just asking not for a gift, but to have a wrong corrected, an error. And it wasn't it was nobody's fault. The time that this was placed on the plat, they used the best evidence that was available at the time, and the Supreme Court ruling really didn't happen until a year after this was placed on the plat, so they really had no way of knowing. But it was, as it turned out, placed incorrectly. So hopefully this is the final step in a long process for me to correct this wrong and for her to go on about struggling to try to maintain her business. This drainage complaint and the rest of the code, these minor code violations that were triggered by this woman's activities, are still in process, and that's the next step that I have to take care of, which I've already got a crew that's going to be in there working on the drainage and everything over this weekend. But I told the code enforcement people that we were not going to do. They wanted us to pave the whole thing. And I said, we're not doing any work until we determine whose property this is. And now that, hopefully, as of tonight, that will be clarified, and then we can go ahead and take care of the rest of the code violation issues.
Any questions for Mr. Brown? Thank you. You have 5 minutes and 52 seconds for rebuttal.
Excuse me?
You have 5 minutes and 52 seconds for rebuttal, should you need it.
Okay. Let me know if I do.
Okay. Is there anyone else wishing to testify? Anyone else wishing to testify in case S11749-1 Parkway Estate subdivision? Anyone at all? Okay. You have 5 minutes plus. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Does anybody have any questions? Or is it unclear?
I've already asked.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Okay. We do have a question, Mr. Brown.
What are the code violations that you're going to be able to work on if this vacation is approved?
Basically, because of this issue of the groundwater in that area, and I am in the geotechnical engineering business. That's the kind of things that we do, drill test holes and work with geotechnical engineers, and we went back to old reports. This whole place is just, that whole area is a big sponge cake, and her original parking when she built that building 18 years ago or whatever, disintegrated pretty rapidly because the ground was so bad. And what I did at my expense, which the neighbor still has no way of knowing because she's not communicative to her neighbors, is I put in myself and one of my employees on Labor Day, I put $10,000 worth of drain rock, filter fabric, and trenching, and all the engineers that I work with, we drilled test holes and we designed a drain system underground to try to dewater the ground under her property. And it basically runs over and does an L shape and runs to some deep gravel that feeds into the creek, basically the underground that feeds into the creek, and that has been draining that ground over the years. And now we're going to have to pave it. I also worked with the traffic engineer, Bob Kniefel, who I worked with years ago, who's basically the final say on paving and everything. And I've worked out a design to where we can allow that underground drainage system to function, because absent that, she's back in a catch-22, because the natural drainage runs toward the creek, which is toward this road, Spring Place. It's a swamp, and the city, normally the water is supposed to run, it can't run onto other people's property, which is fine. It's supposed to run to the nearest road and go into the storm drains. There are no storm drains because the city has never maintained that road, and it's not paved, it's not maintained, so there's nowhere for the water to go. So we're in the process of putting in a paving that has been approved by the city engineer that we can stripe, and I submitted the parking layout, the painting layout to the city, to the code enforcement people yesterday. So and leveling the two handicap parking places, putting the signs at the right elevation, and things like that are what in process.
The question was, what are the violations, not what are you doing to cure the violations? Did I glean from that there's some kind of a violation with a handicap sign?
Yeah.
Just tell me what the violations are that have been issued.
They've kind of changed because she continues at it, but basically that one year she had pictures of water running toward her.
No, I'm not concerned about her complaints. What violations have been issued by a public authority to the property owner?
The property that needed to be paved, that needed to be striped, and the handicap parking signs needed to be elevated a foot, which I did that a long time ago, and that they need to be leveled. The parking spaces need to be leveled a little bit.
Any other besides those?
I think that's basically it.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Any other questions for Mr. Brown? Okay. And is there anything else you would like to say?
No, we should have all the code violations done within, everything cleaned up with the officer, Frank Kelly, within the month. Once we establish whose property we're cleaning up.
Thank you. So we'll close the public hearing and the matter rests with the board. Can I have a positive motion, please?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Clark.
Madam Chair, in the case of S11749.1, I move to move approval of the vacations, 21.15.30.
Say what?
I guess the approval of the vacation of the 100-foot road easement extending from the center line of the Old Seward Highway, Plat 82-232, subject to recording a resolution with the District Recorder's Office.
Thank you. Is there a second? Ms. Stolpe seconds. Mr. Clark, would you speak to your motion?
I intend to support the motion. I think that it's probably way past time that this be done.
Anybody else?
I had a question
Mr. Rowe?
for staff. Could I clarify, or maybe somebody answer, are we actually vacating the full 100-foot easement, or are we actually only vacating 50 feet of the existing 100-foot easement?
Through the chair, Mr. Rowe, it's the 100 feet, but the 50, that doesn't, that eliminates the easement, the PLO, along the Old Seward Highway, but there's a 50-foot right-of-way dedication.
Okay, so we still have...
And it doesn't affect that existing 50-foot right-of-way dedication.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Are there any objections? Seeing none, the motion passes and the vacation is approved. That was the only item under new business. Any persons to be heard? Reports? Board member comments? Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
So moved. We're adjourned.